Shikigami no Shiro, released in North America under the title of Mobile Light Force 2 and in the PAL region as MLF2, Mobile Light Force 2, was developed by Alpha System and is the first game in the Shikigami no Shiro series. It was originally released as an arcade game and later ported to other systems. The game was titled Shikigami no Shiro Evolution for its revised version for Xbox, which was then ported to Windows as Shikigami no Shiro X. When localized, publisher XS Games retitled the game as a sequel to Mobile Light Force, but in reality the games are unrelated. Mobile Light Force is known as Gunbird in Japan, and was not developed by Alpha System. The game is set in July 2005, after a string of serial murders take place in Tokyo. All the victims are female and killed by external injury. The killings take place within 20 hours. The police force classify the case as Special Crime 568, and begin to seek investigators from occult sources. The game is a vertical scrolling shoot 'em up featuring 5 levels with 3 stages each, and the ability to select from 6 characters. When holding down the attack button, the player moves at slower speed, and all on-screen items are automatically retrieved. The player character is invulnerable when a special attack is in effect. When the player character is close to an enemy bullet, the points gained from destroying enemies and retrieving items is multiplied by a factor based on the distance between the bullet and the player character's center. The closer they are to the bullet, the higher the scoring. When destroying enemy in Shikigami mode, the multiplier also applies to the number of items dropped by enemy, and all items dropped by the enemy are automatically retrieved. The Xbox release adds Practice Mode, Gallery, and Replay Mode, while the PlayStation 2 release adds Practice Mode, Gallery, and Side Story modes. The PlayStation 2 version received mixed reviews according to Metacritic. The PlayStation 2 limited edition came with a Shinto priestess figure. Castle Shikigami 2, the sequel to Shikigami no Shiro, which was released as Mobile Light Force 2 in North America, is a vertical scrolling shooter originally developed for the Sega Naomi arcade system board. It was subsequently ported to a large number of different consoles. The PS2 version was released in Europe as Castle Shikigami 2, War of the Worlds. The North American release used original cover artwork based on the Japanese character designs, while the European release used an original image depicting an aerial dogfight. The game mechanisms are generally carried over from the original Shikigami no Shiro, with the addition of more playable characters. The game consists of 5 stages, each with 2 parts, with a boss at the end of each part. Each character has a primary weapon and a secondary Shikigami weapon. This tends to be more powerful, but limited in range or utility, and also slows character movement. Each character's weapons are different, sometimes dramatically, in terms of pattern and power. In addition, each Shikigami weapon is available in one of 2 modes, chosen at the start of each new game. Bombs are also available, and each character's bombs function differently as well. The leveling up of weapons from the original game is the only mechanic eliminated in the sequel. 5 difficulty levels are available, for both the regular game and the extreme mode, in which enemies release additional fire when destroyed. An alternate soundtrack, S2 Mix, consisting of rearranged music tracks from the first game, is also available. The original soundtrack has been completely replaced with brand new tracks in the PAL PS2 release, for undisclosed reasons. The American release was known for its English dialogue, produced as a result of overly literal translation combined with stilted and generally unemotional voice acting. The dialogue for every character and 2-character combination was dubbed into English. Dialogues are not available at all in the PAL release. The limited edition of the PlayStation 2 port included a figurine of Fumiko. Chaos Field New Order is a port of a 2004 arcade game by Milestone. The Dreamcast port was released after the console was already discontinued by Sega. The game is a vertically scrolling shoot-'em-up consisting entirely of boss battles, and featuring 5 stages with 3 bosses each. The player can choose to play as one of 3 characters, each with their own ship that has a unique primary weapon, a spread shot, a lock-on laser, or bolts of lightning. Each ship is equipped with a short-range sword that can destroy bullets and inflict damage on enemy ships. Each player's ship also has 2 special abilities, one being a type of homing weapon that locks onto enemies and the other being a deployable shield that absorbs bullets. The player can flip the environment at will between 2 parallel worlds, the Order Field and the Chaos Field. Gameplay is normal in the Order Field, but in the Chaos Field, the player's weapons are more powerful. The special homing weapons can destroy enemy bullets, and enemies will fire more bullets. The GameCube version, which also received a North American release, included a mode that adds small waves of enemies between the bosses. Chaos Field is the first game from Milestone, a company founded by former Compile employees in 2003 after Compile went bankrupt, who were looking to develop high-quality shooters similar to those Compile was known for in the past. Most of the staff originally joined Compile because of the company's positive reputation with shooting games like the LS series, but were left unsatisfied from Compile's growing focus on other franchises like Puyo Puyo. According to sound and art designer Daisuke Nagata, the game experienced a troubled development cycle due to a lack of organization and the number of employees involved. The team had a working prototype by September 2003 but scrapped this iteration and started anew when they determined it did not feel right. This version of the game had the player controlling a giant robot flying through stages set in real Japanese cities. Chaos Field is also included in the Wii Compilations Ultimate Shooting Collection and Milestone Shooting Collection 2. Critics found the game to be overwhelmingly average, a generic shooter lacking in polish and execution. Several critics compared the game unfavorably to other shoot-'em-ups since it is overly traditional and lacking in distinguishing qualities. In particular, some critics found the game inferior to Ikaruga, another arcade shooter ported to the GameCube. Some critics like IGN only recommended Chaos Field to hardcore fans of the genre who desire to attain the highest scores, and pointed casual players to Ikaruga. The game was also criticized for the lack of a 2-player mode.
Aniki! もうダメだ!
Aniki is a series of mostly side-scrolling shoot-'em-ups in the vein of Gradius, with the occasional different game genre. The series' most memorable characteristic is perhaps its surreal visual style and flamboyant homoerotic overtones. Most of the games have never seen release outside Japan. The last Aniki game developed by original developer Masaya, was released for mobile phones in 2001. With Masaya defunct, the PS2 exclusive, Aniki, Seinaru Protein Densetsu, translated to Super Big Brother, Legend of the Holy Protein, was co-developed by X-Nauts and Saikyo. This team also developed Sengoku Blade, which plays much the same as a result. The game was the first game in the series to include polygonal graphics. In this game, Adon and Samson have found the holy protein that promises to take their bodybuilding powers to the max, but before they can unlock its powers they have to battle through several shoot-'em-up levels and defeat the bizarre collection of enemies that populate them. The player controls the protein itself, while Samson and Adon hover around the protein, absorbing enemy fire as they did in previous games. This game lacks playable characters from previous titles. Some of the enemies include a giant, cross-dressing man in an Alice in Wonderland costume and a Mona Lisa painting that fires lasers from its eyes. For various reasons, the popularity of the Aniki games has endured since the series' debut. Highlights of the various games include in-game music, innovative control schemes, or sheer kitsch value. In Japan, these games are examples of bakagi, which literally means idiot game whose appeal lies in its campiness. The latest game in the series, Aniki Dance, is a rhythm game released in 2021 for Japanese mobile phones. DoDonPachi DaiOuJou is a port of the fourth arcade game in Cave's DonPachi series of vertical bullet hell shoot 'em ups, and the first Cave-developed shoot 'em up to appear on the PlayStation 2. The game was subtitled DaiOuJou, meaning Peaceful Death, because the chief programmer, Aniki Ikeda, wasn't a fan of sequels and wished to, with this installment, give the series a peaceful death. Despite this, a sequel, DoDonPachi DaiFukatsu, was released some years later. After the events of the previous title, 1997's DoDonPachi, in which the pilot stops Colonel Longhinner's plan to annihilate humanity, the remains of the Donpachi Corps are sealed away in the moon, never to be heard from again. 1,000 years later, the robotic army led by Hibachi, have reawakened and are slowly rebuilding itself in order to wipe out humanity again, taking the defenseless moon colony of Lunapolis. The world quickly resurrects the Donpachi Corps, and aided by element dolls, sentient androids meant to increase a ship's power, are deployed on the moon to destroy Hibachi's army. The controls are identical to the previous games in the series, and the same shot laser dynamic as seen in Donpachi and DoDonPachi are also present, with spread bombs and laser bombs also making a return. DaiOuJou follows the conventions of the previous game with only a few changes. The chaining system is intact and works in much the same way. By destroying large groups or chains of enemies in a short period of time, the player can build up a number called a combo, similar to the kind found in fighting games. Causing an enemy to explode fills a meter, and every enemy destroyed before the meter depletes adds to the current chain and again refills the meter. Holding the laser weapon over a large enemy will hold the meter steady and slowly accumulate hits. In this way it is possible to create a single chain out of any of the 5 stages. Introduced in this game and carried on in later entries is a hyper system. By gaining large combos, attacking enemies at close range, and collecting B medals while a large combo is active, players build up a hyper meter. When the meter fills up, a hyper power-up drops from the bottom of the screen. Activating the hyper will cancel all bullets currently on screen and increases the firepower of the ship's shot and laser. The controls in DaiOuJou are similar to the previous games in the series. Tapping one button fires standard shots, and holding the button fires the laser weapon. Pressing another button activates a hyper if one is available, or uses a bomb if no hypers are in stock. If the laser is active, the bomb is an amplification of the laser weapon, otherwise it is an explosion that covers the screen. Players can choose between 2 ships, Type A, a narrow shot ship, and Type B, a wide shot ship. In addition, the game introduces element dolls, which will power up the player's weapons. The most notable features of the PS2 port are, Death Label Arcade Mode, No Bullets Mode, Simulation, or Training Mode, with Replay feature, Gallery, and Death Label Mode. The game also came with a high score DVD, which feature a video from 4 players who completed the second loop of the game. Death Label Mode sets the player against a boss rush, with maximum firepower at all times, and a full stock of hyper granted before each boss. Death Label's difficulty is roughly equivalent to that of the normal game's second loop, with the number of alterations made to the bosses and their attack pattern. The most notable changes made at the final boss fight of Death Label, where the player faces 2 Hibachis simultaneously. According to top players, this is the hardest iteration in the DoDonPachi series, taking 7 years, from 2003 until 2018, to clear. With Junya Inoue still a graphical designer, the serene steampunk world of Pro Gear has been replaced with hard sci-fi. The graphic style, especially the ships, were drawn so as to resemble the original DoDonPachi. Bullets are drawn in blue and pink, and many of the backgrounds are deliberately flat so as not to distract from the on-screen action. DaiOuJou was met with positive reception from critics since its release in arcades and other platforms. Famitsu scored the PS2 release of 34/40. The Xbox 360 version was plagued at release with bugs and problems that rendered the game highly inaccurate and glitchy. It was eventually found that the developer porting the game, 5PB, had without permission, lifted the source code from the PS2 version of the game and slotted it in for the 360 version, while making adjustments as needed.